tires on the roof, and it keeps the...
Good morning. It is September 27th. We're here in the Commissioners' Board meeting. There are a full slate of commissioners. We've got our administrator, the clerk of the board. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is a certificate of appreciation. We had two of them, but the other one will be postponed until next week due to he got sick. So we'll be doing Thomas Westerman's next week. But David Shane Grebe, sir, 29 years of service to Franklin County. On behalf of Franklin County, I'd like to express our gratitude for your faithful service with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office starting December 1st, 1993 through September 30th, 2022. Your contributions to the county and your years of service have been invaluable. Please accept the certificate of appreciation for your dedication and professionalism. We hope you know just how much we respect you and have valued you as a colleague. You will be missed at Franklin County. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Commissioners, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you for all your years of service. It's quite commendable, and we just appreciate everything you've done for Franklin County.
And good luck to you, Mr. Johnson.
Thanks.
Thank you.
God bless. All right, next thing on the agenda is the approval of vouchers. I believe we have one.
Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $298,345.27 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. I believe that was the one and only, or is there two?
No, there's two today.
Okay.
Salary clearing payroll. Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $1,074,706.55 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Next, we'll move down to the consent agenda. There are 7 items on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, before we move to a motion, I'd request that item 2 in the consent be pulled for separate discussion.
So we'll be looking for approval of 1, 3 through 7. A motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion for the approval of consent items number 1 and 3 through 7. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Now we'll go on to item number 2 for discussion.
The purpose and discussion really has nothing to do with the merits of the matter. It has to do with a recurring problem with certain read-ahead documents not showing up in the electronic file. And I checked this one a few times, and for whatever reason, it shows up as, quote, file not available. And so I don't have the background on this, nor did I have time to call the corrections department and track it down individually. So if someone could just summarize for me what this involves. I just didn't want to vote to approve an expenditure I knew nothing about.
Mr. Johnson, you want to do that? Because I read it as they're buying a used vehicle.
Yeah, that's essentially what's happening. The current correction center shuttle van is no longer dependable, and so they have been looking to acquire a replacement. They got some advice from the shop about one of the used vans that they had identified, and came to the conclusion that that was not going to be a viable option, so they have asked for permission to move ahead with the purchase of the 2020 Chevy Express for about $45,000, which in the used van market is still a pretty good price for one. It's an essential asset that the jail correction center needs, and so I think it's probably my recommendation to approve this. They had intended on making the request in the 2023 budget, but because of the fact of it needs to be a dependable vehicle, they asked for permission to move forward with it now.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, move for approval of Resolution 2022-237 in a matter of the purchase of a Sheriff's Corrections Center shuttle van as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the approval of 2022-237, the sheriff's shuttle van. All in favor, say aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, I would ask, have either of the other commissioners had the same experience with just one of all the read-ahead materials coming up as file not available?
I get mine in a book, so I'm old school. I get paper.
So you get yours in the book? Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
mine's in the book as well, and it's all there. so.
Take it up with IS later. Thanks.
All righty, with that, we'll move down to the Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Been another busy week. Spent a little bit of time to listen in about half of the Wasatch call yesterday on fish passage barrier removal. That's a fairly significant statewide effort. It will affect Franklin County in some ways, but certainly not as much as some of the western counties, but it is something that I know our Public Works Office is paying attention to. It's going to require us to replace some culverts under roads due to some state legislation about fish passage. I won't get into the politics of the question. That's certainly controversial at best, but we're watching that fairly closely. Still working on some personnel matters. That's going to continue for the time being. I had a Benton County Emergency Services Board meeting. I serve currently as the co-chairman or vice chairman of that board. Received some information that Sheriff Raymond is willing to take over that responsibility going forward for representing for Franklin County. We had a BIPIN board meeting where they approved the budget recommendation or request for 2023. So that will be moving forward in our budget plan. Also spending additional time kind of reviewing the county budget, where we are. We had a county budget meeting, budget committee meeting. Commissioner Didier participates in that. County's in reasonably good stead, but we are recognizing the national economy is undergoing some turmoil that may affect our ability to continue to operate at the current level or enhanced level that may be sought during the budget hearing. So more to come on that issue as well. Meeting with the local hoteliers around the HAPO Center. They had some concerns and questions about the change in leadership there at the HAPO Center. Got some ideas from them and an agreement to continue to have conversations with them as we move forward. And had a meeting with my counterparts, Washington County Administrators Association, just kind of an update on issues and things that are happening across the state. And then also had a media response regarding Franklin County's plans for our ARPA funds, kind of a status report of where we are. We've obligated about half of our ARPA funds and have requests for really more than the other half, but we'll be bringing some proposals forward for the board to consider. So that's been most of my week for the past week. Thank you.
Commissioner Peck?
Co-chaired the state's legislative steering committee under the State Association of Counties in Ellensburg last Thursday. We went through and voted upon, discussed 35 different proposed initiatives to take to the legislature and narrowed that list to 4, perhaps 5, depending on capacity. It's an annual process and is difficult because the nature of WASAC is that it's 39 counties, each with their own interests, needs, identities, and finding ones that benefit the majority of the counties while not offending any of the other counties can be a challenge. But it's a great group, and we did narrow it down to the 4, and that'll be coming out to you in email here shortly. Friday had the Benton Franklin Council of Governments Board of Directors meeting. A couple of keynotes there as we approved the 2023 budget for the Council of Governments with no, as in 0 increase to the fees or costs to any of the member jurisdictions, of course, including Franklin County. Realign some of our staffing, and I think is a demonstration of the fact that our current executive director, Michelle Holt, who's been with us now for coming up on a couple of years, is doing an exemplary job. Thanks much.
Commissioner Mullen?
So also sat in on the WASAC meeting yesterday. Also had the Board of Health meeting, and we're still in the process of recruitment for a new health officer to replace Amy Pearson's. And also just want to say too that Franklin County lost one of its citizens this past week, Trevor Hummel. He'll be greatly missed, and he was also a volunteer on our recovery center program. So just want to make that announcement. And that is it for my update this week. Thank you.
Yes, Board of Health meeting, like Commissioner Mullen stated, budget meeting, and what was alarming there was the fact that our insurance may go up 30%, which is very alarming, and I think we need to be looking at ways that we can help that situation. The roads out there, harvest is in full swing. We have gravel roads, which our road department's doing a fine job of bringing in some, I think, 1.25 inches minus, and shoring up the roads that are breaking through, and doing a very good job of keeping those roadworthy, so I appreciate that. And then, of course, the passing of Trevor Hummel, and he being on our board, it was pretty upsetting. And I just, I hope the family well. I wish Trevor well too. So with that, we'll move down to public comment. Is there anybody for public comment?
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioner, Chairman Didier. That's really far away. Is there a way to fix that? I don't want to hunch over. I appreciate both your words about Trevor. I've known him since he was 5. Wonderful, courageous, and unselfish young man who got caught up in drugs from prescription. And yet he unselfishly, he spoke out and he helped us get rid of the needle share that he understood was not an exchange and was actually feeding the addiction, and helped raise funds for the rehab center. And I hope that if you ever get that built, that you name a wing or something after that fine young man. I also wanted to thank Chairman Didier. During COVID, it's been very stressful for so many people. And so many people came to this meeting and they spoke about things that the commissioners had absolutely no control over, but you listened because you understood by letting them express their voice be heard under the First Amendment. It kept them from feeling the need to use the Second Amendment. And I think you helped keep this county safe because of it, and I really appreciate that. And I'm also grateful to Commissioner Mullen, because when we were doing the redistricting, there was a lot of pressure put on you, and yet you stood your ground. You stood your ground and you stood for the people. And we saw on April 17th, 2019, what happens when people get along. That's the day our legislature voted. Every Republican and Democrat voted to expand the governor's emergency powers. And because of that, we are still under a state of emergency. And I appreciate you to stand up against, even when you were bullied and yelled and screamed at, illegally actually, according to witnesses. And I really, really want to tell you how much I appreciate you. I love our county. I was born in the Tri-Cities, I was raised in the Tri-Cities, and I chose Franklin County to raise my children. And I appreciate good men that stand up for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phone, Keith?
No callers on the phone.
Seeing nobody else for public comment, we'll move down to the public hearing amending the Transportation Improvement Plan. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Mr. Erdman.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners. RCW 3681.121 requires counties to prepare an annually update the six-year transportation one or more public hearings. Represents the county's priority transportation improvements and is a perpetual planning and project management tool for federal, state, and local government. It may be amended by a majority vote of the legislature after a public hearing has been held. The recommended amendments brought before the board today are Vineyard Drive East Bridge number 886-274, replacement to be added with a newly awarded fund. Taylor Flats All-Weather Improvement 1, acquired funds. North Railroad Avenue and West Vineyard Corridor broken into three separate projects, with North Railroad Avenue from Ryman Industrial Center to Self-Landing added with newly acquired funds. Drive West and North Railroad Avenue intersection project, and Drive West added to the TIP as an project. Recommends that the board adopt the proposed TIP amendments.
Questions?
What is the time frame for completion of these projects?
It depends on where they're at in their funding cycle. Right away, so it won't need to be acquired from that. There's another phase which can add several months or years to this project, and then finally the construction phase. These particular projects, that's all-weather improvement, fast, and I Avenue, we're going to be very aggressive on that.
Thank you.
And the others are in
Right.
we are receiving funding for those.
All right. Thank you.
Greg, I just thought I'd make a quick comment for people who aren't acquainted with transportation improvement programs, plans. These are living documents. It's sort of a running list of all the projects we have, and it's routine for them to get amended as either new money becomes available or money we thought we had goes away, or, so this is very routine, but I just wanted to use the opportunity to thank you for staying on top of it. If we don't grab hold of money when it becomes available, and then more importantly, get it obligated to a project, which is what this process is allowing us to do, then we risk losing that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thanks.
So Craig, on the Taylor Flats, I've been pushing for a means for the big trucks to get around that corner. Is there any movement on that?
Yes, there is a separate project in our STIP. I think it's listed as number 39. Really relevant. Lately, project a little bit, and now we'll be start receiving that shortly.
Fantastic. That would be good news because that is a more than a 90-degree corner. Trucks are getting jackknifed on that corner and backing traffic up, and Glade is taking on all the traffic, and I almost had a head-on yesterday. I had to drive off the road. A car was passing a truck. Otherwise, I would have been in a head-on if I wasn't paying attention. Right by the chicken farm. It is getting very dangerous on Glade Road. So thank you. So with that, is there any public comment on this? Anybody calling in, Keith?
No.
Anybody in the room? Hearing none at this time, I'll close the public hearing, amending the Transportation Improvement Plan, and entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2022-243 as presented, amending the Transportation Improvement Plan.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second on Resolution 2022-243. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Mr. Erdman. And thank you for keeping those gravel roads gravelled up and those breakthrough spots. That's good job.
We try sometimes, it's a challenge.
Well, it's heavy harvest right now. Okay, with that, we'll move down to the administration office business. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, thank you. We received competing proposals from 2 auction houses in Franklin County for the purpose of auctioning off the county-owned property known as the Wilson House. We've kind of presented to you a side-by-side comparison of those proposals, or at least the main components. They're fairly close, but we feel like the proposal from Booker is slightly more advantageous to the county, and we're recommending at this point just a consensus to move forward, and we will bring forward a actual contract and resolution at next week's meeting to approve Booker as the contractor for that auction. I want to answer any questions that the board may have, give the public an opportunity to comment if there are such comments, and if not, we're ready to move forward with a proposal to approve Booker as the auction company.
So Keith, on the memorandum here, that is the total cost. They're all listed there. There's no unforeseen cost. That's the total.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
I'll just observe that, one, as I've said in the past, we're fortunate to have 2 great auction companies in the county, and either one of them could handle this sale without any difficulty. 2, there is about a 1.5 difference percentage value between the 2, which on the estimated sale of the project or the property is probably about $3,000 total. So it's a relatively minor financial difference. And then the last point I would make is that there's no way to predict, frankly, in my opinion, which of these 2 companies would end up bringing a higher price for this particular project. So in my mind, it's a wash, but I'd be happy to support either bid, whatever the rest of the board prefers.
Well, I might add to that Booker's auction company cash at closing on or before 10 days of auction were, muster is 45 days, and if you take the interest on that, that's another sizable amount of money. So there's another savings there to the county. So I am inclined to go with Booker Auction Company.
I believe, well, I mean, like Brad said, we are very fortunate to have 2 very well-qualified companies here in Franklin County, and either one of them would do a fantastic job. My thoughts are, I would go with Booker Auction House.
Okay, I
Very
can
good.
support that.
Okay, we'll bring that back next week then. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the HAPO management issue, excuse me, we've received a draft proposal from SVN. That's a LLC that's been created for purposes of venue management. It's primarily owned by the same principals of CG restaurants and catering service. They have been our catering contractor out at the HAPO Center for, a couple of years now. And they've expanded their capacity to run facilities and venues. And so my proposal is to bring a contract before the board for approval to have them essentially take over the day-to-day management functions of the HAPO Center. I think that's going to be in the long-term best interest of us, the county. It's been difficult to recruit a qualified general manager to replace Tom French directly. So what I envision is this new contract with SVN will substitute for the position of the general manager as well as the sales manager and operations manager. We'll consolidate that work into one contract. We would anticipate having one county employee still an employee of the county at the HAPO Center who will be responsible for maintenance and facilities and day-to-day issues, setting up for events, taking down, making sure that that's all being coordinated with SVN and with the promoters of the different events. It's a little bit of a different model, but looking at their capacity, I think this is a recommended path forward. And so I'm anticipating, like I said, bringing that contract before the board next week to approve that, get them going. Then they would incur a management fee and a percentage of the revenue as their fee for services.
Questions?
Who manages the Toyota Center?
I believe that's Venue Works that does that. I'd have to go back and verify that. I don't want to, but I'm pretty sure it's a company called Venue Works.
Has anyone reached out to them?
Not directly, no, we haven't.
And you said SVN. What does that stand for? And how long have they been in business?
Let me look real quick.
This is the same.
It's SVM as in Mother, Simmons Venue Management.
Oh.
I don't know how long SVM has been in business, but CG has been in business for many years in the Tri-Cities.
So we got out of the food service business and hired a caterer, happens to be the same company, CG. At the time, it was our hope that we could bring in outside market, local business expertise and produce as good or better product and do it at lower cost. And as it turns out, and if Tom French were here today, he would validate this, that the cost of county employees, whom we greatly appreciate but acknowledge with retirements and health benefits and everything else, are very costly. And the major part of the financial turnaround of HAPO Center over the last couple of years has been specifically due to that catering contract. We have avoided enormous costs, we've maintained our revenues, and we've shared in the profits with CG. I think that's a pretty good history that argues in favor of this. There are other companies like Venue Works, which covers facilities. They're not a local company to my knowledge, and this is sort of their standard business. I have done some research. I don't claim any great expertise on Venue Works in particular, but I suspect that that's a much higher cost option. And I prefer if we could contract with a local company if we decide to go this way. I think it's financially in the best interest of the HAPO Center. And frankly, the citizens. We are in a little bit of a pickle right now with having lost all of our key staff right before the holiday season, and we've got to have somebody can come in, pick this up, keep us on track, lest we lose a lot of holiday business and a lot of customers who may not come back if they sense instability in our program. At the same time, I don't know that if I owned a company like this that I'd want to come in and contract for just a few months to get the county through a hurdle either. So, lastly, I suppose I should disclose, although I don't feel any conflict of interest whatsoever, I have used, or we did use, CG Catering at Moore Mansion for years, and they were pretty flawless. We've used them at the county for a couple of years now, so I suppose you have the same relationship with them now that I do, having used them as a service provider. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
I just wanted to make sure that we explored every option that was out there, and I think that CJ Catering's been doing a fantastic job out at HAPO Center. I was just unaware of what their experience has been as far as actually managing venues. So
They did own an event center here in town over near the HAPO Center for a time. I don't know how long they owned it, but I know they actually owned or leased the property right there. I think it is right next to the city's soccer fields and was originally owned by Gordon Brothers. And whether they owned it or leased it, they ran an event center there for a number of years as well, largely doing weddings and other events.
they have experience as far as bringing in outside shows to the area or working with?
It's a fair question. I really don't know.
All right, thank you.
But I would submit that I don't think the other management companies like VenueWorks do either. They just manage the facility. In this case, VenueWorks over at Three Rivers, my understanding is that they still maintain a manager, salesperson who handles that side of the house. The contractor handles the execution of the event. In this case, if I'm not mistaken, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're offering to do both, manage the client base, recruit clients, book events, the whole thing.
All right, I just want to make sure that we'll have a qualified company that can step in and take over where Tom French had left off, because Tom had actually done a very extremely well job for us in bringing in different activities and clients into the HAPO Center. And
I think that's part of the reason that I would recommend that we move forward with this is because of their familiarity with current events and the sponsors. Home Builders Association, of course, is one of our bigger events, and the folks at CG have a long-standing relationship with Jeff Losey and the home builders and those groups that come in and put on these big shows. They've been doing the catering for them, which requires a lot of setup and pre-planning of the event. That's kind of the big deal, other than making sure the lights are on and the chairs are in the right order. Catering is the next biggest thing, and so I think they're better qualified than anyone else that might be coming in and learning from scratch what the HAPO Center does and how it functions.
I can see that part of it. I just think that the biggest challenge will be attracting clients. And
in their proposal, they've already stated some really good marketing ideas, and that was kind of, I mentioned earlier, a conversation I'd had with some of the hoteliers and folks in the Hotel Motel Tax Committee who would like to see a better communication and improved relationship with that community, and that's really the focus of what SVM is wanting to do. Get more active in the Chamber of Commerce and TRIDEC and visit Tri-Cities to really market that center in a much bigger way. And I think that, again, leads to my belief that they would be the one best serving the county in this matter.
All right, yeah, like I said, Tom had done such a great job of attracting different shows and people to come in and rent the facilities, and I just want to make sure we'll be on track that with someone who has that same knowledge to
Right.
bring those activities to the HAPO Center, because to me, that would, from my experience in being in that field, that would be the toughest challenge, would be attracting different shows and
Right.
Organizations to the HAPO Center. So, thank you.
And I might add that as much as CG was successful in the food service, Tom French was very successful in bringing in incredible events. In fact, he was working on a sports that I hope is still underway. And I would just say that Tom French was a great manager of that HAPO Center while he was there, and he will be missed immensely. I would like to know, how long of a contract were you intending on signing with SVM?
Yeah, probably at least a 2 to 3 year contract. I mean, they would like a longer one, but I think that would give us enough time to measure their success. There's a provision in it that we can cancel it early if they're not performing, but I think they're going to have to invest a certain amount in personnel and a little of their own equipment, and so it needs to be a long enough term in the contract that they can at least recover that basic investment of their costs.
And how long did they run their own venue, and why is it now closed? You said they had their own facility and they ran an event.
Yeah, that Commissioner Peck mentioned that. I'm not
But
quite
they're no
sure they
longer-
know the history of their event center.
They're no longer in business?
I don't know the answer to that. You know, Commissioner Peck?
Yeah, if you'd like me to comment, sure. CG's been in business for,
CG, yes.
yeah, well, it's the same corporate structure to my knowledge. I moved here in 2003, and they certainly pre-exist me by a good bit, so 20-plus years in the industry. I don't know details of the business that they're on burden. I can tell you that wedding venues are not particularly high margin, and depending on markets, sometimes you make business decisions to move elsewhere. I know that CG operated the Bite at the Landing, a restaurant over in Columbia Park, and did fine there, but the rules between the Corps of Engineers and the city of Kennewick don't allow that facility to be open in the evenings for dinner, which limits your ability to build a business. And from the outside, I don't have inside involvement at all, certainly, but from the outside, I've heard that part of what they're doing is letting go of the Bite at the Landing, and I think that's creating capacity for them to take on other ventures. You know, they're a good outfit to my knowledge. My exposure with them, again, was working at Moore Mansion. The attitude of the company and their people was, you know, whatever it takes, they go do it. I would like to just kind of reflect back and you know, no disrespect to Tom French. I count him as a friend, and he's a good man, and he worked hard, and he made great improvements for us. But we also lost some pretty significant clients at the HAPO Center in the last couple of years. In fact, some of our major revenue producers. And there was some staff conflict. I'm not going to point at anybody, but it's a tough business when you're working to, well, Commissioner Mullen knows he's worked in this industry probably more than any of us. It's tough. There's a lot of considerations. There's some pretty strident personalities involved sometimes, and the one thing I'll say from my years of having worked with CG, actually, I never hired him. Our clients always hired him, but the answer was always, whatever it takes, we get it done. And I've never experienced that I can recall them having any friction with any clients. The customer service was exceptional. And I think if there's anything at the HAPO Center that we would benefit from is that sort of a business culture and approach. But as for how long they were in business and why they chose to close business A or B, like in my own experience, sometimes you try something out, it doesn't work as well as you hope, so you close it and you move on, you do something different. But I've not seen anything but success out of them, I'll say that.
I think that their catering system has been excellent. They've done a great job everywhere I've ever seen, and so like I said, my concern is only with recruitment of show sponsors and the shows themselves and bringing new clients in. So
Yeah.
I was just curious what their experience was in that field. I think they do a great job as far as catering goes.
So Keith, before we rush into a contract, I would like you to reach out to Venue Works, find out what their business structure looks like. They seem to be doing very well over there at the Toyota Center. And before we get tied up into a contract that we might have to get out of, I don't know, I've never seen anything out of Tom French that was not A1 professional. Great job. So
Yeah, I think Tom was tasked with the mission of cutting a lot of the costs out of the HAPO Center from when he started, and he did a great job of doing that.
yes, he did.
There are some the hotels in the area that would like to improve their partnership with the HAPO Center and drive more business to the center that puts people in those hotel rooms.
Sure.
Shirley Simmons and Steve Simmons were part of that meeting, as Steve has chaired that hotel motel tax committee in the past. I think they understand that relationship very well and the importance of working with the local businesses around the HAPO Center to manage the real mission of the HAPO Center, which is to drive economic activity in Franklin County. And I do believe that that would be a significant advantage that SVM would have over, say, a Venue Works or other outside or out-of-state companies. They seem to really understand the need to support those local businesses. So I just throw that out as.
No, thank
but
you.
I think your recommendation is fine. I'm happy to reach out to Venue Works.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen, are you wanting to reach out to Venue Works as well? I asked the question because here we are very close to October, and you know the lead time on events, staffing and planning. There's some indication that there are efforts underway to recruit our seasonal clients to a new facility because there's a perception of a void at HAPO Center and no one is doing much in the way of outreach with those clients. I have a great concern that we suffer a real loss of clients that we have on the books with this void, which is a long way of saying I think time is of the essence. I'd like to see us move forward as Keith is recommending. I don't have a problem certainly with him collecting information on Venue Works for the meeting next week, but if we do this in a serial process where we answer one question each week, the holiday will be among us and we won't have
Right.
anybody to run the facility. So I think we ought to keep moving forward and also bring the Venue Works information.
Yeah, I would agree that we're already behind in that recruitment of find someone to operate the HAPO Center. I just would like to have a full knowledge of what is available, but
Keith, I suspect that if commissioners wanted to have one-on-one meetings with the proposal or the proposers, I suspect that would be an option
Certainly.
as well.
we, definitely time is of the essence, so,
Yeah, we've got a very busy schedule of events for the month of October, and we will lose our last staff person right around the end of October. Actually, we have one person still on staff, but the 3 key managerial positions will be gone by the end of October.
As will our county administrator.
yeah, I would have liked to have been at the meeting with the hotels with Steve Simmons.
Yeah, Steve and Shirley Simmons
Steve
were both
Shirley.
there.
No. No, they've been pillars of the community for years, so.
And it's something to consider, is they are a local company whose reputation is on the line in a sense that I think they appreciate better than most the need to have excellent performance and customer service.
Yeah. Like I said before, I don't have any issues. I think they've always done a great job here in the Tri-Cities. Just would like to know what their experience is as far as bringing, new shows out to the HAPO Center. Simple question. I mean, just
Sure.
so.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I have what I need there. Next item, we've had a brief discussion, I believe last week, on how we want to make sure our minutes are recorded for this meeting. Karen has done some additional research. In terms of the RCWs, only state that the minutes shall be promptly recorded and such records shall be open to public inspection. It doesn't give us any more specific guidance and detail. However, there is an article that has been promulgated by MRSC. It's written by Ann McFarland, and Ann, as you may be aware, is a registered parliamentarian. She does parliamentary training for cities and counties throughout the state of Washington, I think even beyond the state into some of the national organizations. But this article that MRSC is promoting echoes kind of what we have said in the past, that the minutes should record what is done and not necessarily what is said. That verbatim minutes create not only additional busy work for the clerk or whoever is recording those minutes, but it also is time-consuming and may not, isn't really necessary. That we do have a recording that if a member of the community wants to hear exactly how the conversation went, they can go back and listen to that recording. But the minutes really should just be action items of what is adopted by the board. So I think our recommendation that we adopt action-only minutes going forward is still valid and still the preferred option. I think a well-reasoned view of the difficulty that's presented by trying to do verbatim or some kind of hybrid recording of minutes is problematic for those reasons. But MRSC, I think, was the main question that was asked. What are they recommending? And we went back and looked, and they clearly are of the opinion that action-only minutes are the preferred option. And frankly, it's what most cities and counties in Washington are using now.
My opinion would be to go to action only.
My opinion too, but would that also list the people for public comment? Just so if somebody wanted to hear what they had to say, that they would know what meeting that would be in the minutes, who spoke at public comment, their name.
It can be as detailed as the board wants them to be, but yeah, I think it would generally say public comment was held, but not necessarily record what the position or opinion of each speaker would be.
But their names, so that being open and transparent, if somebody wanted to look at a meeting where they spoke, they could find it easier than have to listen to every meeting.
Yeah.
If they so choose to give their name.
I don't think we can, I'm going to defer maybe to Jen, but I don't think we can require somebody to disclose their name.
No.
We typically ask for that, but I think if they wanted to be anonymous, that we could honor that request. But
Yeah.
other than that, yeah, I think we could.
If they gave their name, and that way it could be researched easier by somebody who wanted to listen.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to listing names of people who make comment. It does take us away from action-only minutes, but that's fine. That's a minor accommodation. I think the chair gives a good reason for doing it. And Jen, not going to put you on the spot, but just to my recollection, there is still a statute, and maybe it's not the one you're referring to, Keith, but there is a statute that I've read that says that it requires a written document, and that the videos themselves don't stand as a legal minutes of the meeting, and no one's advocating that we use them for that. But as I said last week, they are still public records, and they still have to be maintained. And so the combination of very tight, specific, action-only minutes combined with the recordings, I think, gives pretty good transparency to our activities, and I think that's a good way to go. And listing the people who speak, just putting their names so they can find when they spoke is fine.
We good there?
You have any questions there? Good with that? Okay, thank you. That's, I believe, all I have for administration office business. Thank you.
Okay, it moves us down to public comment. Is there anybody for public comment?
Yes, thank you. Many of you know that I've been doing weddings and events for 10 years. And I've done weddings where CG Public Works, they're decent. I've had better. I've had worse. I can tell you that the major concern I've had with people wanting to do events at HAPO is that they're locked in with whoever's doing the food. That's just one point. They would like to be able to have preferred venue, or preferred food providers where you have a list and you have a wide range from high end to low end according to their budget. The other thing that concerns me is a monopolization. When you have the same person managing and going and drumming out business as the same person who's providing the food, I think that's a little bit of a conflict. As an event planner, I'm able to say to, it puts pressure. It actually makes them work harder and to do better, knowing that there's some competition and that maybe the person managing it will not make them the preferred food provider if they aren't up to par. And I've eaten at the HAPO at an event, and the food was actually cold. I don't know what their facility is exactly, or food business is the hardest business. It's the most likely to go out, so I understand. And I respect CG Public House. I know that they do good work, but I just have a concern with that, and so I really respect Commissioner Mullen. He does know what he's talking about. He is in the event business as well, that he can really go and speak to them personally, and the questions to ask, and really look into it and put yourself in the perspective of a client. Is this where you would want to go if this is how they were doing business? So those are just my two concerns. So just thought I'd put my 2 bits in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No one on the phone.
Kathy Sand, Pasco, Franklin County. I just wanted to find out when you were doing the bids for the auctions, there was a company that was outside of Tri-Cities that was apparently a little bit cheaper, at least according to the office that was taking care of it, when the office next door came over and said that they preferred the outside company to sell these houses, and you wanted to go with the local company. So Venue Works, from a quick search, it's a company from Iowa. It is not a local company. So I just wanted to find out if there's a reason why sometimes you go with a local company, why sometimes you prefer a outside source for different things. And also I wanted to expand on Lawanda Hatch's first public comment, that I also wanted to thank Mr. Peck for following the laws and putting up with people protesting in front of his house on a private property with loudspeakers and being extremely rude and mean. So it comes from all sides. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you for your time.
Was there a third company that was not
The,
included?
the treasurer's office, who's responsible for conducting these auctions, typically uses a company whose name escapes me at the moment. They're not a local company, but they operate nationwide with various treasurers. Sometimes it's in the best interest of the county to go with the cheapest price. Sometimes it's best to go with a local company that understands the local market a little better. So there's not a hard and fast line of demarcation of when you would use a local versus a national organization. However, we advertise this for any auction company that wants to participate and only receive these 2 responses back. So the other organizations had an opportunity but chose not to.
Okay.
I
Thank
think
you.
perhaps a reference was the difference between CG, a local company, and Venue Works, an Iowa company.
Correct.
I would just like to say, I would like to use local whenever possible. I mean, it is our community, and I think we should support those that support Franklin County, so.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll just add that, I have not been overly impressed with the level of commitment sometimes when we work with companies that are really owned and driven by companies in the other end of the country. You have people that live local, who have been here for decades, who face their neighbors day in, day out. Their success and our success are absolutely inseparable. They're putting their names and their reputations and their fortunes on the line, unlike a company from pick any other state who, if it doesn't work for them, they just pull out and go.
Right.
So I really lean hard on local, whether it's this case or whether it's the auction companies. I just agree with you that local just brings, I think, a higher degree of commitment.
I would agree.
Okay, is there anybody else for public comment? Nobody on the phone? Nobody
No.
in the room? So, Mr. Johnson, you want to move us into executive session?
Yes, requesting a executive session of up to 30 minutes under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph G, evaluate qualifications of applicant for employment or review performance of a public employee. Oh, I'm sorry, I would ask that myself and the board, and I think that's just myself and the board for this discussion.
Are these signed?
Okay, we've come out of executive session. We're back in regular session. Is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.